Right, away we go. Ho, ho, ho! Hello, hello, sut ydych chi gyd? Oh, first class, posh presents, posh presents. Oh,
Posh presents. Posh presents. Hello.
Oh, hello!
Right, that's all right.
over there and said it's for Leo. The Elf Express.
Are you going to see Father Christmas?
She's just seeing
Seen
him.
him?
Ho, ho, ho.
Right away!
Right, hello again. It's been quite a long while since we spoke to you from the Mountaineer project. We have been busy. As you can now see, the chassis is upon a wagon. We've taken the wheels out. They're outside at the moment. Yesterday we did actually clean them off of all their grease and rubbish, but as it's now pouring down with rain in Wales, we'll not show you those today. We're busy just scraping the last of the grease off the chassis for power cleaning at another date again, due to the weather. And now this is as far apart as the chassis will come. If you come over to the front, you see there's a very big bit missing. This is where the cylinders sat. They're in the machine shop. We'll go and see them very shortly to show you what's been going on with them. But we had to remove all the fitted bolts that were there, and that was a hell of a job. Ian, one of our volunteers, spent a hell of a long time trying to get those undone, and eventually we did have to ask the work staff for a bit of help because the tools we had available we got as far as we could. So that's away from machining. The brake shaft parts, you can see, we're just in the process of working out where the hole centres are to make that good again. And we have some thoughts on using different materials for the bearing surfaces as it only moves a short distance. But everything is all dismantled and labelled up. We'll pressure wash the chassis, and then these will get shot blasted early in the new year, ready for any final crack testing. And then it'll be starting to make other pieces time. So right now, the first of our, part of our redesigning or improvements for the Mountaineer is trying to sort out the back end of the locomotive, because this block here is where the boiler sits, and so that's all the weight of that was sitting upon that part of the frames, which, as you can see from this nice bit here that's got multiple parts and can take the load quite easily, it comes down to a single stretcher, and it's got all the weight of the cab, the bunker, was the fuel tanks, all sitting at the back end of the loco, and the firebox as well. So we want to change that because we think that it did look, when the loco was put together, it was trying to sit down at the back. So we've come up with this idea where we're going to add an extra plate in that's bolted to that end over there on the big construction, and this diaphragm plate here. And Ian has now reached the final prototyping stage nearly. We did have the big wooden bits that David made probably 2 summers ago, but it's now been printed out as from Ian's drawing, and it shows us what fits in. We're going to add a little bit at this end because we've found that it's very different on both sides, and then it shows us as well how far and where this plate will sit, which will hold the centre, which gives rigidity in the middle so it's not flapping about, and then the reverser, which will now sit on this quadrant. It's in a slightly taller position than it was, but that's not a problem. But this will now mean, as it's not attached to the boiler, it won't move backwards when the boiler expands. It will be held securely on the frames through this construction here, and it means the boiler, the back end is a bit better supported than just through this single leg. So this will all be done in 10mm plate. It will have some lightning holes made there, so it's not carrying around dead weight, but we're very close to ordering these parts. It just needs a few final tweaks from Ian when in his own spare time, and we'll be ready to go. Right, so we're now in the main workshops. As you can see, this is the boiler for the Alco, so we don't forget what it's for, of course. When Jonathan Waddy last spoke to you on Moving Pictures, this was still outside waiting for the work to be done. It's now been in the works, and some work has occurred to it. As you'll see in some of the video from the firebox, the corners have been all ground out and welded back up, which was seen by the boiler inspector as he wanted that doing. That has now been completed and retested to certify the work. We've also added in these pads onto the boiler, which are going to be for a new support mechanism to take some of the weight of the boiler onto the middle of the frames, how the original boiler was attached before this one was put on the engine, because we believe that's a bit better for the chassis. All that's left to do on this now is to put the tubes in. Over the next, in January, we have a plan to have a big tubeathon of putting the tubes in the boiler, a big long weekend, where we'll have to cut the tubes to length, heat up both ends to anneal the metal, and then they'll be put in the boiler and expanded at both ends. There's a little bit of work to do after that to seal the firebox end with a seal weld, but that could then mean once that's done in January, subject to change of course, but we could then cover up all the plate exits on the boiler and do a hydraulic test, which is good progress. So as I pointed out earlier on the frames, there was a big bit missing, which was where the cylinder block was. Here is the cylinder block. Now this has had a hell of an amount of work done to it, because there's 4 sets of bores here. There's the main cylinder bores, and they've all been redone. But this has been quite tricky. As you can see, we've had to make a jig for it to fit on the borer, because it's all one-piece casting. If you look at the double fairleys and everything, which you've probably seen with Mr. Wally, they're in halves, so you can have one on one side and one on the other. But this is one big casting, so it's been a bit of a challenge. They've then had to dial up one of the faces to decide that's 90 degrees to the boring head, and then they've bored the cylinders. The main bores, which are the original bottom half of the cylinders, have been quite good. They just needed a little bit taking out to make them completely round again. However, it's been quite fun, I've been told, for the work staff to do the piston valve conversions. We found out all of them were last done in the 80s on the engine, which is good, but sometimes if what you're basing the measurements off is not perfect, it gives you a bit of a discrepancy. And we also think that these were done off, not assembled. So when they set about machining the bores, they were found to be quite off-centre. So they've required quite a lot of material to come out of them to make them all in line as per the whole cylinder block, rather than just as a single item. This has been done by the work staff because this is simply skills that we don't have, and it's also an incredibly important part of the locomotive, and we want it to be done right first time. So I believe it's got one little bit left to do. It's also had the valve guides at the back of the cylinder block remachined, so they're all in line with the bores. And it's now, because the bores are bigger on the piston valves, they're going to need new cylinder covers cast, and thankfully whoever made those originally in the 80s has left us some nice patterns, so they'll be quite easy to get made because the original register for the holes is now too big. But this is a huge step forward in the project. The fact that the cylinder block is now probably 90% of the way to being machined. Once this is done, we've got a little bit of work to do on the brake shaft, and then this could go back in the frames, and we can then start measuring up all the axle boxes and then the wheel sets and the crank pins and the rods after that. So this is the start of when this goes back in. It's lots of engineering stuff to occur, not as much massive visible progress, but it's a huge step forward for the project. So going back to the valve guides, these are the bushes at the back of the cylinders that hold the other end of the rod for the piston valves. These have all had to be remade to line up with the bores in the valve itself. So these have all been redone, these are new. This one in particular has had to be sliced off because to get it anywhere near the borer on that side, because there's a support for the building in the way, you had to spin it round. So one had to be chopped off and has been reattached. This is where we're up to at the moment with the Mountaineer project. One of our volunteers, Gwion, is in the process of finalising the CAD drawing for the water tanks, and he's hopefully going to send that over to John Wally to order the parts very, very soon. So that's also in progress. And as I said, we got the tubing hopefully happening in January 2026. Boston Lodge are now working on the chassis for us, and starting with the cylinder block. So that's now progressing. And our volunteers and work staff are working together as best they can. Thank you very much for everyone's support online. You read our Facebook posts and updates very regularly, and in the Ffestiniog Railway Society magazine and the Welsh Highland Society. We are making good progress. As you can see now, we're relying on the expensive side of having machining done and using people's skills. So if you'd like to see the Mountaineer back in steam soon, we are working our hardest, but please donate to the fund, because that will simply allow the completion of the Mountaineer to happen as quickly as possible. So whatever you can give, it's very, very welcome, and thank you very much for listening.